In our strategy, we use a 5-phase macro framework. We are not predicting headlines. We are tracking leverage, credit, and liquidity mechanics, and how pressure builds across the cycle. Expansions often feel stable right before they are not. That is not psychology, it is leverage, and the short-term debt cycle explains why. This framework comes from Ray Dalio's work on debt cycles, but we do not treat it as a forecasting tool. We treat it as a mechanism, one that repeats inside every business cycle. The short-term debt cycle describes how borrowing rises and falls. When credit is easy, spending increases. When credit tightens, spending slows. That is the core mechanism. Debt amplifies outcomes. It boosts growth on the way up, and it accelerates stress on the way down. That amplification is the instability. Here's the basic sequence. Credit expands, spending rises, income and asset prices follow, leverage quietly builds. At some point, pressure appears. Inflation rises or balance sheets strain, policy tightens, and credit stops expanding smoothly. The slowdown is not linear. When debt cannot roll, it must adjust. That adjustment happens fast, because leverage forces behavior. In our strategy, the debt cycle lives inside our phases. It does not replace them. It drives transitions between them, especially late in the cycle. In early phases, debt has already been reduced. Balance sheets are healthier. Credit expands cautiously. This is the constructive part of the cycle. Phase 1 is where the debt cycle accelerates. Borrowing feels easy. Risk is rewarded. Leverage builds across households and corporations. Asset prices rise faster than incomes. Confidence increases, and stress is masked by liquidity. This is where fragility quietly forms. As leverage peaks, cracks appear. Rates become restrictive, refinancing gets harder, cash flow pressure starts to matter. Not everyone breaks at once. Strong balance sheets survive longer. Weak ones feel stress early. This is rolling, not synchronized. Phase 3 is where the debt cycle breaks. Debt can no longer be serviced normally. Assets are sold to meet obligations. This is about cash flow, not confidence. When debt cannot be rolled, it must be repaid or liquidated. That is mechanical, and that is why downturns feel violent. In the reset phase, debt burdens shrink, defaults slow, lending standards reset, and the cycle clears excess leverage. In the current environment, the short-term debt cycle looks late and strained. Leverage is high, and refinancing sensitivity to rates is elevated. In 5-phase terms, this aligns with late phase 1, transitioning toward phase 2. Debt still exists, but expansion is no longer clean. The risk is not that debt exists. The risk is whether it can keep rolling. That is the pressure point, and it determines sequencing. If this kind of framework helps you see risk earlier and filter noise from signal, subscribing means you get more of this lens over time. Same structure, same discipline, different cycles. Quick note here, this is educational macro commentary only. It is not financial advice. The debt cycle helps answer one question: is leverage expanding or contracting? It explains why instability appears late, but it is not a timing tool. It cannot time market peaks. It cannot override credit signals. And it cannot stop liquidation once it begins. It explains structure, not outcomes. As debt expansion slows, we increase sensitivity to credit stress. We tighten sequencing discipline, and we prioritize confirmation over anticipation. We do not predict crashes. We do not abandon phase discipline. We do not act on narratives alone. Signals still lead. Dalio's short-term debt cycle explains why expansions feel stable until they suddenly are not. Leverage builds quietly and unwinds faster than expected. We do not need to be early, we just cannot afford to be late.